Welcome to the Exponential Edge podcast with your host, Arya Sulur. I'm excited to have you join me on this journey exploring the forefront of technological advancements and innovation that will shape our future. As a rising junior at Acton Boxborough Regional High School and the CEO of SecArmor, a cybersecurity startup, I've always been fascinated by the transformative power of technology. In this podcast, we will dive deep into 5 key areas that are poised for exponential growth in the next decade. We'll be exploring the realms of cybersecurity, generative AI, sustainability and climate tech, biotech and human longevity, as well as the reshoring of manufacturing. These topics hold immense potential to revolutionize our world and redefine the way we live, work, and interact. Each episode will feature insightful conversations with experts, thought leaders, and visionaries who are at the forefront of these fields. In just 30 minutes, our goal is to provide you with 5 signature nuggets of wisdom from our guests. These key takeaways will empower you with knowledge and help you stay ahead in an ever-evolving technological landscape. Without further ado, let's introduce our guest for this week. Hello everyone, our guest today is Dhairya Pujara, CEO of YCenter and co-CEO of TradeZiris. Hi Dhairya.
Hey Arya, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be here finally
Same.
and have a conversation.
Yep. So first off, I just wanted to ask you if you could give us a brief history of your career and the key
Yeah.
moments which led you to found YCenter. And could you just go over what YCenter is as well?
Yeah, I can try. That the starting question itself is very heavy, but let's do that. If I were to unpack the whole history of my career and what led to the founding of Y Center, I would try to summarize it in 3 key moments. The first one, of course, being quitting my job on first day back in 2012.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now, that's not the most professional thing to do and not even very wise, particularly. But I think as an entrepreneur, comfort can really stifle your risk taking ability. Jobs offer you that security, and that's not good for an entrepreneur. And since I was just out of college, I was used to living on like $5 meals, no insurance, living with roommates, basically being broke. It was very easy for me to quit my job on first day and continue just living like that broke person that I was for a few more years until I start making my first penny. So that was, I think, the first key moment of my career, that which was ironically giving up the job. And by the way, there's a big difference between job and career. People don't see that difference. But yeah, I gave up the job to find a career. The second moment would be going to Africa. So I ended up working in a rural hospital in Mozambique with people and communities, and that really challenged me to my core. Like, not just as a professional, but as a human being. And I feel most schools prepare us to be successful in life, and our families, all of them wish we are successful, and that's great. But my African experience really taught me how to deal with failure. What do you do when you fail miserably? Like, I had tons of projects that didn't work, things were not going according to the plan, and that was, I think, the second most important experiential part of my career, going to Africa and failing at a lot of things, and none of my plans working. In fact, that's good, because I read this from one of the most famous, I think, management consultants, American consultant, Peter Drucker, who said, "Planning is the kiss of death to entrepreneurship," and I completely agree. If you are an extreme planner, then entrepreneurship is not for you. So I think that prepared me. And the third moment is my entire immigration journey of working with Philadelphia-based lawyer and the friends who helped me do crowdfunding campaign, and then finally getting my visa status sorted out of living in America in 2015 and starting this company. So those are, I think, the 3 key moments that led me to founding of Y Center, if I may. And bringing the question to the second part of it, which is what is really Y Center. So we started purely as an experiential learning company back in 2014, but in last 9.5 years, it has been through its own evolution, like any other company on the planet. So as of today, in 2023, YCenter is a global consulting company, and we design workshops for universities on entrepreneurship and sustainability, to actually doing problem solving and go to market strategy consulting for large scale Fortune 500 companies,
Wow.
and building technology based solutions for government agencies around the world. So we are a learning, innovation, and design consulting company.
Yep. Nice. So you do great work, and you've done a bunch of stuff before you started Y Center. So you have
Yeah,
experience in many other different fields as well, and I assume that
yes,
helped you with your ventures at Y Center as well.
a lot.
Mhm. So for my next question, I just wanted to ask you: could you give our listeners an overview of human-centered design, please?
Yeah, sure. Um, so if you just look at the context of problem solving in the world today, a lot of people are focused on building solutions first and then hoping to find the right problem for it.
Yep.
Very, very common in today's world. Human centered design. Sometimes it's interchangeably used with design thinking. They are two different things, by the way, but it's very common in the world for people to, mix and match. But a very simple understanding, not really a definition. You can find that on the internet, but a very simple understanding of human centered design is keeping human beings and the problem faced by them at the epicenter of your problem solving journey,
Mhm.
which really means understanding problems from people's perspective and not from a market perspective at large. So, really getting to the micro level and not macro.
Mhm.
And that's what really human centered design is all about. So, if you think about famous companies today like Airbnb or Apple, they all have human centered design as part of their design philosophy. For many years, Apple was one of the first companies to have actually make that as part of their core business strategy.
Mhm.
And that's exactly, with Y Center I've been doing, working with this large scale companies, bringing human centered design perspective to help governments or startups
Yep.
not worry too much about the solution, but focus at a micro level on understanding the people for whom they're solving the problems. And that's essentially human centered design.
All right. Thanks. It's really helpful. So, could you also go over your company, TradeZiris? What's the mission of that company? And how do you juggle your roles as CEO of Y Center and TradeZiris at the same time?
Sure. So, first thing, the common things between both of them are they're both entrepreneurial ventures and not typical
Yeah.
businesses, which means there is a huge creative upside and an equal amount, if not more amount of risk involved. Both the businesses are focused on untangling the complexity when it comes to solving problems.
Yep.
Now, Y Center does it from a very service perspective. So we have consulting services. There's a lot of it's very heavily focused on human resources, right? Like
Yeah.
the more people I have, the more smart people I have on the team who are better at speaking, relationship, collaborations. Y Center thrives. When we come to TradeZiris, it's done from a product perspective, and they're two very so that those are all very similar commonalities between the two companies. But when you think of TradeZiris, as I mentioned, it's a product company and it's focused on solving the complexity in international trade, specifically import and export. Uh, they both use the approach of human centered, but the difference comes in the fact of obviously the first being I was the solo founder for Y Center and also the CEO of Y Center. But at TradeZeris, we started along with a bunch of people. So I'm not alone.
Mhm.
I have an amazing team of people I work with. In fact, my co-founder, who who was the seed of the idea for TradeZeris, she's an expert in international trade,
Yeah.
um, working with California government. So the journey feels a little less daunting. It's still very scary. I won't lie. I'm still scared every morning when I wake up thinking about what's going to happen. How are we going to make the product? How are we going to sell this? All of that. That's all common for any entrepreneurial venture. But it feels a little, I would say, 10% less daunting
Yeah.
because of the fact that I have more people involved. So there are more people who are responsible for the success and share the not so successful outcomes as they come inevitably, in the journey of both of these ventures. But yeah, I'm with TradeZeris. I'm taking more of a product product officer role where I'm focused on product dev and the business model. But with YCenter, I'm doing everything, right from hiring to public speaking to doing the consulting programs to doing workshops to filing taxes. It's a small business, but we all do a lot of things and wear multiple hats because it's a service oriented company. So yeah, that's a little bit about YCenter and TradeZiris.
And I wanted to ask, which one do you think will be bigger scale in the next few years?
Yeah, that's easy. The service oriented company has a limitation of how much you can scale. We were asked by one of our ex investors. There's a whole story there why X
Yeah.
to scale YCenter vertically. Like let's get 10x growth, 20x growth, and you can try to do that. And I think there are some really cool examples of some consulting companies that have done that.
Yeah.
But we have chosen to be more selective about our clients. We actually also had internally we have a whole manifesto, if I mean, who we work with and who we don't work with.
Yeah.
So with Y Center, the potential of impact, it's extremely deep and very long lasting, I feel.
Yeah.
With TradeZiris, the potential impact is much more global in scale, much faster because things are moving very quickly and it's from a product perspective. So the
Yeah.
product will become obsolete in a few years when the technology changes. Like right now, we are using generative AI and we would be using the latest LLM models, which may have a few billion parameters trained.
Yeah.
But I think 5 years from now, I'll be working on a trillion parameter trained, pre-trained model. So the model will get better, the product will evolve, and hence TradeZeris has a higher opportunity to capture a large scale of market. And purely from a business perspective, number perspective, I think it has a chance to scale vertically. That 10x
Yep.
growth we are talking about,
Yeah.
the 20x growth, that's really possible with TradeZeris because purely being a product company.
But for Y Center, it's just about the absolute quality and impact you can make rather than just
Yeah.
as many of the customers you can get.
Yes, Y Center has a lot of relationship angle built into it. The projects are long term, and as I mentioned, not everything we touch turns into gold
Yeah.
because we're dealing with extreme complexity. I'm talking about solving hunger problems in Africa. I'm talking about using satellite image to help a farmer grow better avocados in Kenyan rural village, working with public health workers to get malaria medications in every village. So, these are extremely complex problems, uh, long-term strategies are involved. We rely a lot on our partners, our including governmental agencies to do their job. So these products are very long-term. With Trade Series, we are purely a private tech company play, so it doesn't matter how fast the governments can keep up with. I mean, everybody's talking about AI regulation, but I think we can still move very rapidly, go to the market, acquire those customers, and start that growth. So yeah, that's really the key difference between Y Center and TradeZiris.
All right, great. Thank you. And going into your work with these other countries, like
Mm-hmm.
you run programs in Burkina Faso, Mozambique, and even
Yeah,
countries like Canada, like
yeah,
developed countries. So, how do you tailor Y Center's programs to fit the unique needs and cultures of all these different countries?
yeah. Yeah, to be specific, we've done programs in 30 plus countries in 4 to 5 languages actually. But the key area is not to begin with execution, but to first find a collaborative relationship in that country with a local agency or a local expert.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean just find somebody who speaks the language. That's translation. That's mechanical. That's okay. I'm talking about the intellectual part of it. So, for example, this year we worked on an agriculture innovation program in Ivory Coast,
Yeah.
next to Burkina Faso, and they speak French. I don't speak a word of it. So we had two options. I do the program virtually on Zoom, and we find a real-time translator who does my translation from English to French, and then the people speak and he turns it back from French to English. It's just very complicated. We lose a lot of time and value. Instead, we found a local facilitator who I transfer the skill set to, and they run their own show. The biggest point of them of all doing all of this is not just the language, but it's understanding that local cultural nuances, the local challenges.
Yep.
Sitting in America, if I'm going to train 15 entrepreneurs in Ivory Coast where I've never visited, I've only read about it on internet, and that too is very limited. I'm not going to be able to do justice to those programs. So finding that local experts who have lived there, who are born there potentially, who lived, through 2 3 decades of their lives, they've seen the country change. They're seeing how politics, economics, societal changes are playing a role in their local economies.
Mhm.
That helps. That
Yeah.
perspective is important for project design and project facilitation. So all the countries we work with, be it Egypt, Burkina Faso, Mozambique, India, South Korea, Vietnam. I mean, just list goes on and on. We always have maintained our framework of finding a local agency or a local partner with whom we can collaborate and deliver the programs.
Yep.
We don't do it ourselves.
Hmm. And speaking of getting it right with their tradition, learning their tradition, I wanted
Yeah,
to talk about one story that I've read about the work that you've done in Mozambique, uh,
yeah,
and your work with the local healers there to combat malaria. As I believe that most of the people in those Mozambique villages don't actually believe in traditional healing, and they'd rather
yeah.
take help from those healers. So, could you elaborate on how this experience shaped your approach to problem solving in other international contexts?
Yeah. Uh, Great question, Arya. And the fact that you read through this, that tells me a lot. But specifically, you mentioned something in your question framing. You said a lot of these people don't believe in traditional healing and they go to these
Yep.
healers. Right there is a big assumption we make and labeling we do. It's an unconscious bias.
Okay.
We believe the medication part is the traditional healing
Yeah.
and what they do is non-traditional, but not in their perspective.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning of this interview, human-centered design, I think that's really what I learned. For them, the traditional healing is going to that healer,
Mhm.
not taking Western medications or not just taking scientifically proven therapies that works. They don't believe that's traditional.
Yeah.
So right there is a big learning, for me as an entrepreneur or for all problem solvers out there. We make a lot of assumptions when it comes to solving problems.
Mhm.
Um, Working in that community, as complex, as different as it could be from my world and in which I grew up, in which I've usually operated, and a lot of us in the US are used to. I think what it did to me was I was able to shed all these biases. I was able to unlearn, which I was later on told it's a big skill
Mhm.
for entrepreneurs. How quickly can you unlearn things as well? Because you have to make space for the new learning. So I think that experience taught me about the power of unlearning, the power of accepting when you are wrong, power of collaboration, and then of course finally the solution part. When you design solutions, you make sure that they're locally adaptable, locally created, and scalable locally.
Yeah.
You can create something very expensive and try to drop there, but it will be too alien and it will just drive people away further from using that solution to solve the problem. So stop solving problems for the people and do it with the people. So that was literally summing up the whole experience, and which I still use in my problem solving journey.
That's really powerful. Thank you for honing in on that one
Yeah,
detail
yeah,
as well. And I want to talk about your entrepreneurial ideology. And that is, I believe that entrepreneurs don't have a dream job, and they either have a dream or a job. So, can you discuss the personal sacrifices and strategic decisions you made to follow your dream, including your choice to prioritize employee salaries over personal comfort, like in YCenter?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a philosophy. Actually, interestingly, I mean, I didn't know it was a philosophy. It was just a random quote I came up with when someone asked me this question. I was giving my first ever interview. I think I was like 22, 23 when I started the company, and I gave this line in an interview, and I think the reporter decided to use that as a headline of the opening of the interview. And then a lot of people started tweeting and tagging me.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this seems like it's hitting really well with people. So then I kept using that in my talks for next few years.
Mhm.
I haven't done that in a while, but yeah, it's a good reminder of my own philosophy
Yeah.
with this question. So I, what I think the sacrifices I made or the strategy. Let's look at unpack this like one by one. So sacrifices. I don't think I made any sacrifice. Entrepreneurship for me, it's a very selfish. journey. I mean, I don't know if I should say I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, because I feel I've always been an entrepreneur. I don't know any way else. One of my mentors told me entrepreneurship is not what you do, it's who you are, and I very strongly feel that. I'm not saying that is the definition, but that's a definition I subscribe to and I live by. So for me, it's who I am. It's part of my DNA, and it's very selfish of me to follow my dreams. I think it's selfish for anybody. To follow their dreams, and not in a bad way. That word sometimes is completely misconstrued, but I think selfishness is not, there's nothing wrong in that. People who help people also do it for a selfish reason that they find gratifying, they find immense pleasure in helping somebody else. That's good selfishness. So I think the sacrifices don't really qualify as sacrifices when you're doing it for your own dreams. The strategic decisions about prioritizing employee salaries over personal conflict, I think that's an extension of that selfishness I was talking about. I think in early days of Y Center, I met a I met a business leader. I'll not name him, but he had a big impact on me. And he said, he was looking at my work and my portfolio, and he said, you are doing all these talks, and yeah, like you're getting these likes on social media and everything, but what do you really want to do? Is it about you, or is it about Y Center? Like, everybody knows you, but how many people know your company? There's a big difference between what you build and your personal branding. Yeah, I mean, we all know Steve Jobs and Apple, but Apple outlasted him, and it's gone beyond even what he built. And to full credit to him as an inventor, entrepreneur, that he did build something that can outlast himself. I feel doing that, building that organization and building that company requires you to invest in the people who are helping you do that, which is your employees. So I was the last person who got paid in my company. I remember my first three hires. I was taking $0 in salary for almost for 6 years of my entrepreneurial journey. So, but I was paying monthly salaries to people who were working with me. Now, yes, there is. I mean, it seems like I made a choice over my own salary, but I wouldn't have any money or salary if I didn't
Yeah.
invest in these people. They helped me build the company.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's true for most entrepreneurs. The ones I follow and the ones I've read about. So it doesn't seem very strange to me. It did seem strange to others when they heard that. How is it possible that you are broke and your employee actually gets a salary? But I think that's entrepreneurship. So anyone out there who believes they want to do entrepreneurship because they're going to make a lot of money, it's one of the worst ways to make money, because you're not
Yeah.
going to make any
Yeah.
for first few years.
Yeah.
You are better off getting a high paying job, after getting a engineering degree.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not all glossy as it seems.
Yeah. And thanks for giving that side of it. And I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about what you said about the word selfishness, how that's not like inherently a bad thing. And it's not completely linked to it, but I play American football, and one thing my
Yeah.
coach tells us is that you like be a team player. That's good and all,
Mhm.
but when it's your time to play, when it's your play, the play is going to you, the ball is going to you. You need to be selfish,
That's it.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree. Now I don't have too many analogies around American football. I'm a soccer guy, so yeah. But yeah, I've been trying to keep up and I'm trying to learn.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it can be thought of in any sports context.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I in fact, some of the sports people I really admire are the ones, even in team sports, are the ones who have really been good with their own abilities and brought their own level of confidence, brought that individuality and that authenticity to the game. That's what makes a team powerful. It's every single component of being extremely strong. In fact, even at Y Center, me building my first few employees and my first teams, I was told by one of my mentors, and I've had the privilege. I keep using my mentors because I've had a bunch of them, and one of them talking about the fact: remember to let your employees have individual agencies. Let them flourish in their own dreams, and that will reflect on your company's success. In fact, this morning I just welcome our one of our newest full-time employees, and my only message to her was, I want you to be extremely selfish. She told me that in a year from now she's not going to work in my company. She's going to apply to go and study in a college outside outside her country, somewhere in a different country.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you need to do get there? And she's like, I need a portfolio of amazing projects. I'm like, that's it. Do those amazing projects. Use the platform of YCenter. Let's reach out to the company you always wanted to work with and build a project with them, and that goes in your personal portfolio. But use our company. I benefit a lot from it as well, and you make your own portfolio to apply for your higher studies. So yeah, I mean, I'm all about that authenticity and that individuality
That's
within the
awesome.
team setting as well. Yeah.
Definitely. And I want to shift gears just a little bit. So you were also granted an O1 visa, right? Which is a category for individuals with extraordinary abilities. So, how has this designation impacted you, your entrepreneurial journey, and what doors does it open for you?
Yeah. The first door it opened for me was my ability to live in America, literally. I mean, US is the land of entrepreneurial dreams. Anybody telling me otherwise, I wouldn't agree. If I had to start over all over again, I would choose US every single time, just because of the fact that it's so merit based. For all its flaws and issues, I think it's still the place to start a company.
Yeah.
So, getting this visa really opened up that door for me, the ability to legally live in the US and, hire more people and do a lot more work. But also at the same time, because it's a special visa, this is not just about immigration, it's a recognition of the work I've done. So I got this visa in the category of entrepreneurship and humanitarian engineering, which means I have the I'm not using this word, I'm not trying to be immodest, but I have the extraordinary ability to use technology for social impact. So the visa recognizes my contribution to this field, and that allowed me to obviously gain confidence as an entrepreneur. It's equivalent of raising $1 million in seed round capital for your tech company. So it has exactly similar feeling, except for the fact you don't have the $1 million with the visa, but you can get there by yourself. And then I think what that led to was me being able to work with several high profile agencies like United Nations, governmental agencies. I had the privilege to work with some amazing young people like Global Shapers, which is part of World Economic Forum.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
it just, I mean, not everything is directly linked to me getting the Owen visa, but a lot of it contributes
Yeah.
to that factor. It opened up a lot of doors in terms of, I think, recognition of my work, if I were to really summarize it in one line. And as I mentioned, US being one of the top countries for capital raising, for capital growth, for business growth, I think I'm very happy to have had that opportunity.
Mhm. And talking about your UN collaboration, can you share some examples and anecdotes on how being a global shaper for the World Economic Forum
Yeah.
and your collaboration with the UN have contributed to your work tackling complex and social business challenges?
Yeah, sure. So the Global Shapers thing happened 2014. I don't know what you know about it, but it's a very cool community of people under the age of 30 or 32, I think, that are selected in every city around the world, and their focus is building solutions, actionable projects in their cities. And what it does is also grants you opportunities to collaborate with local city governments. Now, a lot of young people are obviously in the tech world. Technology entrepreneurship has very low entry barrier, if I may. But when you think of politics, it's not necessarily still a very open field like the tech world for young people. So Global Shapers open up those doors where I was able to collaborate with municipal agencies. I was able to meet the mayor's office
Yeah.
in Philadelphia. I was able to travel to Switzerland, Geneva at the World Economic Forum curators meeting and really meet some powerful world leaders. So I think that experience at that young age, to have a seat on the table and have your voice heard and participate in global conversations, that's extremely powerful. It brings a lot of learning at a very young age. So I definitely recommend everybody out there to seek out global shaper chapter in their community or their city and see how you can participate. It's really a cool bunch of people. uh, and the United Nations, I've been collaborating, under the umbrella of UN Sustainable Development Goals, the set of 17 goals that were established and agreed upon every country. I think almost 200 countries around the planet, that we are going to fight these problems collaboratively together. Everything from poverty to climate action to, so on and on. So yeah, I've been lucky to be a part of the UN commitment membership under the SDG umbrella, and I've been invited to speak, for example, last year at the UN Science Technology Innovation Forum, to participate at Climate Action Conference in Sweden last year. I've been a speaker. I was one of the youngest speaker a couple of years ago when I was young at a Uh, UN event in Kenya, Global Open Data on Agriculture and Nutrition, GODAN, the short form for that. So, those experiences were so unique. Most of my family and friends didn't understand what I was doing. I don't know if they still understand. Maybe this podcast can help. But I found it very cool, and those are some of my most cherished memories and times in my entrepreneurial journey so far. And I still continue to engage with those agencies because I still get to meet some of the coolest people to collaborate with in those networks.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And to end us off, could you just go over your 5 key takeaways from our conversation and maybe geared to entrepreneurs looking to blend technologies like AI and social impact?
Five. Okay. So I think the first three are very easy. I would start with the fact that because of AI, you are able to very easily build solutions that have a high potential humanitarian impact. So focusing on people, it's a little paradoxical. People talk a lot about AI and tech, but it's really I think about making human lives better. You and I were discussing just before we started this hit record about human longevity, and isn't everything about that? Isn't everything about making our lives better and longer in a quality way? So I think the first thing is the potential to make humanitarian impact just on people. The second is, with AI we are able to create and understand climate action much better, the climate change, and the impact of human activities on climate change much more significantly. We have better ways to model and better ways to predict. So I think, and that's just one part of the environmental issue that we can look at, but there are many other environmental issues. So I think the potential to make a large environmental impact, so I would say planet, the typical people planet. And the third one, no brainer, profit. So I would say with AI, it's so easy now to be able to scale faster. You asked me the question about the ability for which company I see scaling faster, and I immediately said TradeZiris, because it's backed by technology like AI, and it's a product company. So I think AI does that. A technology like AI allows you to really build products faster and go to market faster, which means your opportunity to make profits is also much higher. So people, planet, profit, mostly in that order, I would say those three things. And you said five, so I would say the fourth one is, we've heard about, I'm an entrepreneur, so the fourth one is, I think we talk about lean startup a lot, the lean startup model. But I think with AI you can now talk about going much leaner, the leanest possible way. You don't need a team of 10 people to start a tech company anymore. You don't need to hire a marketing agency to design your marketing collaterals. You can do that with one of the products I love a lot, Canva. Now they use AI as well. I'm a big fan of that company and just the product itself. So it saved me a lot of money, and while making some amazing designs, and we've never hired a full-time designer in the team. We've had once in a while freelancer, but that tool is a perfect example of going from lean startup to leaner startup, because of AI. And the last one ties up to something I mentioned earlier in this interview, the ability to unlearn, which means unlearn and learning. With AI, I think we have the best opportunity in the history of mankind to learn anything, anytime, as quickly as we want it. the only reason somebody's not learning a foreign language or not reading, let's say you don't want to read a 500-page novel, AI can now make a concise version for it. It's not the same thing, but you know, better than not reading at all, I feel. And maybe eventually it will get you excited to read the whole book. That is really the purpose. But the massive opportunity to learn something because of AI, that's just mind blowing to me. So I feel in that order, people, planet, profit, lean startup, and then I would say learning. I think those five things collectively allow you to use AI for making the largest impact in the world on yourself and around the world.
Yep, definitely. And thank you for those insights. And thank you again so much for joining us today on the Exponential Edge podcast. Thanks to all our viewers today. And join us next time to learn about businesses and trends that will see exponential adoption in the future. Thanks, Dhairya.
Thank you so much,
All
Arya.
right, bye.